Hello, everybody, and welcome to Alternative Interactions. I'm Gary, and I'm joined today. I have the great pleasure again for our second chat with Joel Schafer. So, Joel, would you please like to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Well, thanks for having me, Gary. Yeah, it's a real pleasure to be with you today. I'm a student of shamans, so I've been training my whole life since I was 13, 16 in how to navigate perceptual intensity. I left the world for a period of time. I actually went out into the Rocky Mountains with a backpack and was, really separate from society for many years because I was in different cults that were private in different parts of the world. So I'm just fascinated with Toltec dreaming arts, and I study the information through books, but also through teachers, mentors, guides. I have guides that are in the non-linear, that are not here physically, but are helping me in other ways. And yeah, I'm just a student for life, but I'm also a teacher. And also, as a teacher, I learn more from my students than I do from my teachers. So it's a really cool thing to be of service and to be helping people. And that's what I do. I mentor one-on-one. I teach courses online and in person. The next course will be in Los Angeles on the beach in April. So I'm always switching it up and creating different ways in which we can all come together and train.
Beautiful, beautiful. And for everybody, the link will be in the description for Joel, his YouTube channel and his courses and such like will all be there. I think you've got a website as well, haven't you, Joel?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
joelschafer.com.
Yeah. So the description will be there for everybody,
Great.
so that we can get you a little bit more traffic because, in
Appreciate
my
it.
opinion, well deserved. You're doing some amazing work there. You really are. And I have a few personal friends that have spent time with you, and you're helping them. Not going to name names, but and I know that you really are doing some amazing work with them, and they appreciate and cherish the knowledge that you give them. So
Oh,
thank you for that.
you're
Um,
welcome.
Now, for those new kind of to the Toltec sort of shamanic wisdom, I'm kind of interested in how you perceive the reality that we live in. I
Mhm.
know many of us have got our own different ideas, flat, round, neither, as
Mhm.
in, you know, from your experiences
Mhm.
of communicating, let's put it that way, or observing different realities or realms or frequencies or consciousnesses, how do you perceive or see the realm we live in? What do you think it is that we live in? Some say it's an AI control system, some a toroidal field of consciousness, some it's a
Mhm.
round ball flying through space. I mean, my audience is very switched on this one, so you're not going to offend anybody. But how
Sure.
do you see it, please, Joel?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a physical place, therefore it couldn't possibly be flat or round. It would be a holographic projected reality that's based on how we interact with it. But I don't think that this narrative we've been given about spinning flying water ball flying through space at Mach 10 or whatever insane speeds they're suggesting. Um, as I look into that, there's nothing to hold on to. There's no facts. It's all just like smoke and mirrors and deception. So I think it's important to come to terms with what it is not before we try to understand what it could be. So I'm open. I'm not claiming to understand. Carlos Castaneda, learned how to move his assemblage point away from the customary position in which perception is typically interacted with. And his teacher, Juan Matu, said, if you were to move your assemblage point while standing in the middle of Los Angeles, you would remain, but Los Angeles would no longer be there. So we are the thing, and everything that we are observing is essentially a hallucination. And our ability to traverse hallucinations, to go from one perceptual intensity to another, is how you become a sorcerer, a dreamer, a traveler. We are meant to be traveling into these other layers of the Earth Mother's matrix. So the word matrix has been given a negative connotation, but the Earth matrix is a magical aspect of the feminine consciousness that provides this opportunity. And she's communicative, right? So you can connect directly to the designer, the creator, and the earth, the sun. All of these beings are conscious. In fact, they're far more conscious than we could even ever imagine being. Like we don't even have the creativity or the imagination to perceive directly through silence. And so it's very difficult to stop thinking. But if you could do so, then you would start to realize that this place is not what it appears to be at all. So it is a journey to try to come to terms with the way in which we've been deceived. So I perceive this realm as like a timepiece. The moon tells us, what time of month or year it is, and then the sun tells us what time of day it is. So we can interact with it as a linear being, but as a Toltec, you can unbind from the linear. So you don't have to be caught in the timepiece. You can break out of this timepiece and move into nonlinear timelessness. And time is measured by intensity rather than by the tick tock of the clock. But that's what's happened is that there's this force that is more powerful than us currently, who has hijacked one of our chakras, and it's making like a very disturbing sort of tick tock, and it's not a healthy spinning vortex like our chakras are meant to be. Therefore, we're actually been, in a sense, corralled into a prison of sorts. But it's not a prison planet or a prison realm. It's just that there's the illusion of the prison, right? So all these people that are in the soul trap stuff are really black pilled and they got caught in a really negative version of reality when it's not that at all. It's just we're in a time where some of us are going to be able to make use of the sort of energetic revelations that are occurring. So this it's going to get weirder. It's going to get wilder. It's going to get more and more schizophrenia. More people are going to become unbound from this experience as it's supposed to be. So a shaman is a functional schizophrenic. They learn to move their perception into places that allow them a completely different experience than what everyone else is experiencing. Um, so I do perceive that water in a physical hallucination, it always finds its level. So I'm clear on that we are not, that there is not a bending ocean. It doesn't make sense. It can't happen that way. There has to be a container. So therefore, the waves that come in and out of the ocean are based on the fact that they're hitting something somewhere else. Otherwise, it wouldn't work that way. So I think there must be, for whatever reason, we are not allowed to go into certain parts of the world where we can verify what the physical structure is. But there's a reason why we're not allowed to see that. And so the people that run this realm or have enough financial power to control, who gets to do what and all these things, it's going to require some really advanced training in order to try to figure out what's going on in these places where they won't let us go. And that's part of my training is to get strong enough to go into these places and witness these things. But as of yet, I can't claim to know. But I'm fascinated by all of it.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really does sit very, very much in what I perceive. It really does. Um, I, I almost see it as an AI matrix. It's definitely not a reality, and it's almost as if we've got like those VR headset things that I can't stand AI. Anybody who watches my channel knows I have a distinct hatred for it. And I really do, and I try and avoid it as much as possible. But it's almost if we're sat there with a VR headset on, but we're
Sure.
not physical. We're like an energy being that has the VR headset on that's given the perception of something being totally real,
Mm-hmm.
that we then have feelings that makes us think it, but all that is the vibrational frequency of the realm creating the solid or the perception via the brain of that, which is fascinating. And with the tides, I actually believe we're in a toroidal field.
Hmm.
and a toroidal field's always moving. So we have a positive and a negative.
Hmm.
And when we start looking at like free energy, the Tesla
Hmm.
stuff, the
Hmm.
ground is always the negative, and the positive charge is up in the atmosphere. So if
Hmm.
you think you're then going to create a wave form
Sure.
with salty water that's turning, it would
Hmm.
give you the same kind of effect as you were holding a glass and swishing it very slowly. And that
Hmm.
water would then start to move around,
Hmm.
creating a wave tidal system as it hits against Antarctica, for
Hmm.
want of a better
Yeah,
understanding. So yeah, I mean,
that's
beautifully
cool.
put. I mean, um, it's definitely not a round ball flying through space. I mean, it's really definitely not. And
Yeah.
as you say, water always finds its level and its course, which is
Hmm.
a really important thing to understand. So even if we're in a
Hmm.
computer game starts with a flat level 2D board that's built up. And one of the things when I first really started getting my head around this was the computer game. So I can only see what my eyes see, and the informed field that we're observing via my connection or interaction with that creates what I've been brainwashed into believing is a reality. And so that's created for me. And so I see things that I'm told is a chair, a desk, a computer, whatever, a wall. But when you sit there alone, for me, when I'm sat there alone say I'm sat there on a sofa, relaxed, chilled out, I know that the wall behind me, that I perception of it being there, isn't actually there.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I truly believe or know in my heart that when I'm sat there, there's nothing behind me whatsoever until I look round and my reality creates that.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that kind of thing that we create? I mean, you touched on it already, but we create the reality, the perception of the simulation. How do you see it? Is it that how you perceive? And do you get that when you're going into different dimensions or different frequencies as you do as a shaman?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, so in the Castaneda books, they refer it to as skimming. You're skimming off of a particular point of perception in order to function. So a child being raised, in this world, if they're not given a description of the world, they would end up in a mental war. They wouldn't be functional. So we're meant to become functional within this illusion of physicality. I experience the same thing as you. When I'm sitting alone in the dark long enough and I get silent enough, then I realize that we're just boundless, luminous creatures and that there is no physical world whatsoever. But in order to take action, someday I'm going to have to figure out how to walk through that wall as a means to validate my understanding. But
Yes.
right now, I'm hitting the wall still. I'm still in a physical body. I do believe there's a simulation running, and that these events that are happening in our world keep us in a story, and that story hijacks our capacity to travel because we're keeping it intact. So it's the undoing, the not doing, the unlearning, that allows shamans to eventually walk through walls. Usually they need psilocybin though, or medicines or something to help them change speed. So if you could go backwards through the stream of consciousness that is projecting this avatar, then you could switch grooves like on a record and go into other worlds. But it takes a lot of energy to be able to do that. So you have to clean up your life and stop draining yourself through unnecessary habits or ways of interacting with this realm. And it's quite uncomfortable and intense to come out of that comfort zone and into the unknown where anything is possible. And so we're bound by the fact that so many people are perceiving the world as a physical place. Therefore, it makes it really, really difficult to free ourselves as individuals. If everyone was doing this work, it would be so much easier. But because so few people are doing this type of work, there's all this pressure to remain fixed in a physical perceptual experience. And so this is the opportunity of a lifetime is to be awake during these times where things are starting to fall apart. Because that's the doorway into these other layers is realizing that these people that think that they understand physics, that understand all these things, they're actually miserable lunatics projecting their own insanity into a system that they haven't even validated anything. They just all go along with each other's story because it's kind of like an experiment. Most people aren't willing to stand alone, ask the hard questions, that we're very hive-minded. We don't want to be ridiculed. So it's like social at its core. And so a lot of people struggle when they come out as flat earthers because people make fun of them, they get ridiculed by all the people that are unwilling to look at these concepts. So it takes a lot of courage. And that's part of the rite of passage, is to not let other people's social expectations of you keep you from becoming authentic.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the authentic part of it is really really important. Um, I did a thing yesterday or day before where I was talking about like being, just being, and coming into your own power, feeling the love, generating that frequency. And I'm not calling it high frequency. I'm just calling it the frequency. High vibration. It's not. It's a frequency, and as you connect into that, and the more you do it, the more for me, the illusion falls apart because you're creating an energy that this system doesn't like. It's toxic to it. We become we become toxic. We become the rotten apple in the barrel almost, don't we? And I know it's a bad way of putting it, but we are,
Hmm.
you know.
It's a
Uh,
threat. Yeah, you're a threat to the agent Smiths, right? They it leads to that capacity to eventually stand there. And the Toltecs call it stopping the world. This world only appears the way it does because we're having these constant thoughts that we think are our own, but in fact they've been lent to us by a predator that is controlling us. And so it's very disturbing, but very important at some point to come to terms with this. Carlos Castaneda said you can face this predator now or wait until you die. But one way or another, we're going to come to terms with the fact that we're not here alone. There are other beings, very powerful beings, who are very afraid of getting caught and exposed for what they're doing. So there's great pressure on each individual to not discover the totality of their being because that would spread, that kind of courage would spread like wildfire, just like fear spreads like wildfire. And so it is very difficult to break out of the patterns that make you predictable and therefore controllable.
yeah, yeah. Something you said was definitely one of the things I wanted to cover. Um, one of my things that I've been dealing with quite a while now, and I think I've kind of gone 60-40 now on this one. But again, I'm happy to be what swayed. Do we actually really have any thoughts ourselves, or are we just antennas that believe that we're having a thought? And so you
Hmm.
know where I'm going with this one, don't you? It's Joel. So what do you think on that one?
Yeah, I mean, there's a different ways of talking about it. I agree. There's something called silent knowledge in which you're directly interacting with feelings without having to have thoughts. And so there is an opportunity to journey into, but ultimately the Toltecs say we have two minds. We have our natural mind, which comes from the inner seer, and it's really loving and supportive and heart-based and beautiful. And I would say that that natural mind is still connected to something higher or more expansive. So it really isn't necessarily our own thoughts. It's coming directly from source.
Yes.
But then there's this other force that's lent us its mind, and then we call it a foreign installation. Yeah, and it's very, very disturbing because you can be having a real breakthrough that is perceptually advantageous. And that foreign installation will try to make you feel special. It'll try to control you and turn you into a cult leader or something so that you're usable as a means to harvest energy from others. Toltecs say that you can stop lending your energy to this force because you get disciplined enough that you're not palatable. The force no longer finds you as it's no longer food because it doesn't enjoy the taste of your energetics because you're conscious. And so that's the solution is to take such beautiful care of ourselves and others in our lives and really be aware of the way we can be of service. Um, this predator energy, it can't control everything. So there's time and space and moments within your day which you're able to really repair from getting beat up by it over time. And it's these magical moments that you have where you're conscious of your impermanence and you're having a really bonding experience with a neighbor or a friend or a lover. And, if you can come out of the fake romantic storylines that exist within this projected experience, you can have really authentic experiences that, make it possible to really change and have an effect, a beneficial effect on this realm. So even though things seem really scary and that there's so much effort to make sure that we remain, prisoners, it's kind of that time. It needs to be that way in order for us to properly come to terms with what's going on. So even though it looks like we're in a de-evolutionary contraction, it's leading to an explosion of consciousness.
Yeah, yeah. It's like forcing the bottle on with the pressures building and which is fermenting, and at some point that lid's going to get popped off, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you described much better than I did the rotten apple
Hmm.
perspective, as in the frequency that we produce. We're not the rotten apple, we're actually the good apple in the
Yeah.
barrel of rotten apples, is the way I should have really put it. But obviously, I don't want to, people get triggered very
Yeah.
easily. Yeah. Now, I call this energy or this overlay the Fibonacci sequence. And for
Hmm.
me, it is the Fibonacci sequence. And I've looked at this in a scientific way and been able to show it is because that links back to um, Metatron's cube
Hmm.
and the Merkaba and all the things that are the control level layer upon layer and layer of what we currently are under. Um, so I have done quite a bit of work on that, and that comes back to characters like Janus, Ionis, or you know other people like Zeus, or the energies that they like to reinvent themselves for whatever names required for that overlay to re-establish the
Hmm.
Agent Smith effect on whatever population that was starting to get to the stage we are now, for me.
Hmm.
Um,
Cool.
so fundamentally, we're kind of looking at a fear and control mechanism that's external to the inner freedom of us, aren't we?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
you've touched on it now already because I think you and me are on exactly the same page on this. Are we, do you think, breaking the control mechanism to create something better now? That bottle of pop's about to go. The fear and the control mechanism, I believe, is more scared of us now
Hmm.
than what we are of it anymore. Because for me, I couldn't give a shit. You know, as I've given myself the source. I'm trying to do the inner work. I'm trying to stay or keep my frequency at the right frequency for me.
Hmm.
Daily struggle, we all know it is. But as I'm doing that, the fear and the control is dropping away.
Yeah.
It is the shamanistic way in which you look at this. Is this what you're seeing coming in? Are you seeing this externalization dropping away and the inner freedom, the power of us starting to really come forth now?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a really beautiful thing and it's a beautiful, um, honor to be, of service in this way, to be helping people to do that. And um, we are very magical, creative creatures, and there's a way to reclaim that imagination, that creativity. And it's very uncomfortable at times to go into the areas of our past where our expression got limited. But that's how a shaman does it. They recapitulate the events of their lives, and they get to know their patterns and their blueprints, and then they become um, liberated from those patterns and blueprints. They erase their personal history. They become conscious that they're going to die, and they start valuing every moment, and they start going inward. So I've been saying for a long time, people have been doing yoga and meditation, but now it's going to move into lucid dreaming and shamanic movement, and people are going to start to really break out of the religious programming or the spiritual programming. Toltecs aren't spiritual, they're energetic and practical. And so they don't run from the world, they enter the world consciously and learn to keep their magic and their center once they get strong enough. There is a time to retreat from the world and to evaluate your relationship to things, because it's really easy to control people if you're constantly busy and stressed. But if you can reset your energy field somehow, and it usually takes time. You can't just expect to do a weekend workshop and all of a sudden be healed. It's going to happen in the minutia, the little things throughout your day. This is such an incredible, magical world of perception. It's just, it's just infinite in its potential, right? But that potential has been hidden from us. There's all these limiting beliefs, and I still have mine, and it's going to take a lifetime to really be honest about, what it is that's in the way of me being, a truly magical creature again, which I was when I came into this realm, right? So the Toltecs say you're born with the totality of your being and you die with the totality of your being. But in between, we have no understanding of what we are. We don't know what this place is. We don't know what we are. Um, but that's the mystery. That's the unknown. And we don't want to try to label these things, because then it becomes the known. The unknown is meant to be the unknown. It can become knowable, but then there's something called the unknowable that the Toltecs encounter, and they can't even go into certain areas of perception because it's too dangerous. So we are actually in like an infant stage of things. We're slowly starting to become capable. It's been reserved to private shamanic groups for a long time that they can do this work. But then something happened where the dark sea of awareness gave the message that it's time for this not to be private, but it's time to be sharing it and to invite others into it in a way that can be disseminated across the board, not just reserved for the few.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's beautiful. For me personally, 18 months ago, 2 years ago, I started getting into human design,
Yeah.
and for the audience, what Joel for me is expressing a lot of is actually your human design and understanding how you work, react,
Sure.
and act to external stimuli, whether that
Mhm.
be people, planetary alignments, the weather, anything, as well as the internal programming of you and
Mhm.
understanding how you're going to react to certain stimuli or
Mhm.
certain things that are going on and it's a very complex. I mean, like, I'm a baby at it. Honestly, I am a baby. um when I talk to him at 10 and he starts going on to it and really getting into nitty gritty, I'm like, oh, God, yeah, 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 yeah. I get it, I get it. But so
Yeah.
so there are many paths to the same outcome.
Yeah.
You've gone down the shamanic route.
Mhm.
Others, I'm not saying anything like you at all, but the journey I'm taking is a different journey, but the perception of the result of what I observe is almost identical to what you're seeing, which for me validates in a way my craziness of my ideas and how I see the world. Do you know what I mean? Because
That's awesome.
if we all had the same journey, what would we
Mhm.
learn?
Right. Yeah. Oh, cool. Totally. I just got done interviewing Isabella Giomi. She's my human design mentor and teacher, and she's changed my life. It's a map. Human design is a map. Carlos Castaneda wrote a bunch of books, and we call it a manual. It actually is a map. You know, if you can understand it, which is not easy to do, but if you can truly understand it on a deep embodied level, then you become a living myth. You become alive within a system of intelligence that is offering a way forward. And we do need a map. It would be, we would end up schizophrenic without one. So we really are in a delicate situation, and we do want to, you know, I'm careful to always make sure I have people in my life that are helping me to be honest with myself. So I hire mentors and coaches that that spirit guides me to work with. And it's the most beautiful thing to be in a teacher-student relationship and to be supported, to feel that, you know, that alignment. And so, yeah, whether it's Meten or this woman Isabella, or if you want to work with a different kind of map, you can work with me. I can slowly help you come to terms with different ways to change your life for the better. But we do need something that our mind can work with so that we're not trying to do it purely through our feelings, even though eventually you can learn to be purely present and and therefore become pure feeling again is what we actually are. This place isn't physical, therefore it's pure feeling. But in order to heal, we need to be able to fix our physical form so that we're strong enough to handle the electricity that's going to move through our energetic being. And if we don't understand ourselves, like what human design offers to help you understand what's open, what's fixed, all that stuff is really powerful because then you know what your unique makeup is. Otherwise, you'll spend your whole life comparing yourself to other people instead of realizing that you're, because that's what most of the world does, is they're like trying to keep up with the Joneses and appear that they got their shit together and make it look like their relationship is good. And they're not being realistic. They're not being honest. They're actually lying to themselves, you know, and that's the worst thing that can happen is that you start deceiving yourself. It's one thing to deceive others, but when you start lying to yourself, you get so lost. But sometimes that's how people reach rock bottom, which is where the change can happen. So it's super messy, but it's a beautiful thing to be, you know, witnessing.
Yeah, yeah, no. Um, there's so many ways to do it, and again, with that, um, the externalization, we've been brainwashed into giving our power away to a third party, whether
Yep.
that's organized religion or the thing that feeds off our loosh or a codependency relationship, which is quite toxic. You know, whichever way it works, we have been trained to do so.
Hmm.
And to really be what I did personally is I actually spent time in front of a mirror
Hmm.
and I would look at myself in the mirror and I wanted to know who I was. I was lost at the time. I
Hmm.
wanted to know who I was. And we're trained to look at the darkness always. So
Hmm.
again, this overlay, I think, creates a frequency that makes us look into the lack.
Yeah.
But we also, from that lack, have abundance.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to look at myself in this mirror and really know who I was, see the lack, but then be able to work on the lack with the abundance of what I had in store. Now, this is something a lot of people miss. So,
Hmm.
for me, human design is another piece in the puzzle that allows me, if I wanted to again, look in the mirror,
Yep.
but understand why I did that because of the human design aspect, and then
Hmm.
use that with the abundance that I have
Hmm.
that I've developed through the frequency of me being me,
Hmm.
warts and all, to then be able to move forward in an authentic way. And a lot of people have, I think, recently, because we have such big energies coming in at the moment, because we do. I mean, this coming year is going to be wild. It really is. I mean, it's going to be a year that has. I'm not going to say it's going to be a unique year in the world of history, but who knows? But certainly in our living knowledge and understanding, this is going to be the most potentially big year we're ever going to see again. And we're going to get a lot of false prophets and false gurus who are going to believe their own claptrap, if I can say it like that. And there's going to be a lot of noise out there. So for me, it's discernment. Okay. Now, how would you use your knowledge of discernment to try and find the right people that you're working with? I mean, I've got a brilliant support network around me. I'm really, really happy with it. For you, what are would be the red flags, or what would be a green flag to work with somebody with a student master friendship type thing to help you grow and develop in this way?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I'm become very, very sensitive to these things. So I trust my gut, my feelings. The red flags for me are people that think that they've completed something, that they've reached mastery, where they put themselves above others, and they've allowed others to put them on a pedestal. Because if you're on the pedestal, then you're not connected to the earth. And so we all need to be on the ground. The grounding is electrical, like electricity needs ground. Otherwise, it gets really dangerous. And we are electrical beings. So your instincts will always tell you what's going on, but your ego might tell you something else, right? So it's just personal, it's individual, it's like getting really honest, and there are really no mistakes. If my ego sends me to work with a master who ends up proving to be out of balance, that was just a contract that I needed to go through as well. So the predator energy runs a lot of fear, right? And it's actually its fear. It's afraid of getting caught. It's like a kid with a hand in a cookie jar, and it's afraid that mom's gonna come around the corner and catch it. So it's always blasting this fear. And then that fear can make you make decisions out of lack, right? Where you put someone on a pedestal because you're so, unresolved. So when you're looking in a mirror, and that's what I am. I'm a mirror for people. If you spend enough time with me, I will be able to help you see yourself, right? And there's other people that can do that as well. And but I will always need mirrors. I'm not, there is no mastery. It's just infinite in its potential. But I'm attracted to beings who are otherworldly, and you can see it in their eyes. There are beings that are otherworldly who have avoided their shadow work, and they're going to become monsters unless they find a way to go back to the basics. So it's sad and confusing and scary and disturbing on so many levels to witness. A lot of the women I was training with were very, very psychic. And then in 2020, they started recommending people take this poison in their arm and starting to wear the face coverings, um, and perform those rituals. And those rituals are destructive.
Yeah.
They are just, so uh, it was heartbreaking for me to be so close to these people and have them take that position or stance on things. So the red flags are really difficult to come to terms with, but we can always tell when we're not listening to source and that we're letting this hive mind control us, but we don't admit it to ourselves because we become attached to whatever their vision is for us. So, it's just I appreciate people that are truly authentic and speak to their wounds and talk about what they're struggling with, that are willing to talk about their past and how confused they were and really just allow themselves to be transparent inside of a process because that shows that they're actually capable of being of service in a way that isn't going to end up in a destructive power dynamic.
Yeah, yeah, because it's very easy in this realm to believe the bullshit and your own bullshit as well.
Yeah,
And I don't know a better way of putting it than that because
yeah,
but it is because you know one of my mantras is nobody's better than me and I am better than nobody,
yeah.
and that's it. And the other mantra is that I observe but do not absorb.
Mm, beautiful. I love
So
it.
all the noise, all the stuff going on, I'm watching it and I'm seeing it. And you find yourself getting drawn into it, don't you? You know what I mean? Like, it could be the latest thing that's going on with Venezuela or something. You know what I mean? And it's just, and that little hook's there. The hook's there,
Yeah,
and you,
yeah,
oh, and you got to then sit back, breathe, ground yourself, and think, no, I'll give it the 24-hour rule, or I don't know enough about this to really be saying anything that I should be saying. So just leave it and let somebody else be the mouthpiece of this one, and let's concentrate on getting myself back into some kind of equilibrium and getting back onto the journey or the road that I need to be going to, because there's so much noise out there, isn't there?
yeah, it's all theater. And if you're paying attention to the drama, then you're caught in a story, and then you become part of the story. And that's the point, is to harvest harvest luminosity from the people through the way in which they react to the stage. And if you can keep people paying attention to the stage, then they're not going to be looking around at the wonders.
No, no, I that's very well put. I mean, Maten put it very well, is that we're walking down this pathway, and beside us is the greatest roller coaster funfair amusements, and there's a great big circus at the end. And it's actually the road that's the important thing. And
Yeah,
all these distractions are designed to go, oh, I think I'll go there. And off they go.
yeah,
And suddenly, and I also see it as rabbit holes as well.
yeah,
So I'm a researcher. I class
yeah,
myself as a researcher, nothing more. I just look at lots of stuff and research.
sure.
Everyone has to have a label these days. I don't like labels, but if you want to put a label on me, I research.
Mhm, mhm,
There's rabbit holes. And what
mhm.
you realize after a while is, did I dig the rabbit hole? No. Who dug the rabbit hole? Rabbit holes are narrow, long, and dark. And if you're not careful, you can get stuck inside the rabbit hole. And the thing that you were looking at to give you the knowledge becomes your master, takes over you, and you
Yep,
become the parrot of the rabbit hole, bringing it back on, and you're the one sat in the trap saying, come here, look at this, look at this. And you become part of the noise.
exactly. Yeah, it's they're constructed together, right? The deception on the surface, and then the rabbit hole is engineered as the balance. And so both are entrapping. There's booby traps, in the rabbit holes, and then once you're trapped there, then you start inviting people to come down and get in the trap with you, and you become an unknowing to yourself. You've just served the purpose of the predator, right? And then to be able to admit to that, like, oh shit, let's get out of here. This place is, and then you just then it's all part of the journey. But yeah, it's I think it's important to go into them,
Yes.
but it's also equally important to not stay in them. You become capable of accepting the stage where you're at. And so um people that avoid the rabbit holes are allowing the deception model to be their base. And so it's really difficult. It's kind of like the pills, like the, blue pill, red pill, black pill, and then the white pill being that everything's amazing, that it's all good. It's part of the process that we need to go through as conscious beings, is to extract ourselves from the rabbit holes as well as the deception model, and that's the neutrality where you're not giving attention to either. And I agree with you that if you're putting yourself above or below anyone on any level at any point, you're going to get lost, right? And so we really, a king and a beggar both have the same opportunity. Your material possessions may seem like secure, a way to feel security, but it's a false sense of security. And then vice versa, this idea that once you're poor, you stay poor and you have to suffer, all that is also like a beggar given a chance to have someone to put himself above, he will. Most likely, he'll talk shit to someone that he considers to be below him, or he might project onto the king as an evil being that because he's hoarding the money. But all of that just keeps you from being able to step into the neutrality, which is where the real abundance is, where you're not materialistic, but you're thriving so that you can be of service. And it takes a really unique person to do that.
Yeah. It's a tricky balancing act. I ain't saying I'm good at it. Not, no, but I
Totally.
can observe it and see it. I mean, for me nowadays, rabbit holes and all these bits and pieces, the fact that I'm aware the rabbit hole's there, the
Yeah.
fact I know what the rabbit hole's about because I've done
Mhm.
enough research in the past, means I don't need to go down the rabbit hole. I need to
Right.
be aware it's there. Yeah, it's a really deep one, or it's a shallow one, you know? And I can then I have an understanding, and oh, that links with that, that links with the rabbit hole back there, and that's that rabbit hole back there. That's all I need to know these days. I don't need to know who kissed who jumped
Hmm.
out of an airplane, or who shot who. I don't care.
Hmm.
You know, it's about the journey of getting to the stage where you can then observe it all, but not absorb that energy and maintain that center line of your connection. For me personally,
Beautiful. Yeah, it's such an opportunity. This place is serving as the perfect obstacle course with all of its distractions to really just see what we're capable of, by reclaiming our attention.
yeah. Yeah, beautiful. Now, we, I believe we live in a, as you do. I call it a realm. It's easier if I just call it a realm because it
Yeah.
covers everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I believe that we are the true creators in this realm. We've just
Mhm.
been deceived into otherwise. Hence why they want us to focus on the rabbit holes or wherever else. They don't want us focusing on what we want, which is all the part of the news and all the fear porn that we get everywhere. So stealing Jason's name, reality tunnels. I believe we create our own reality tunnels and we have full control of our reality tunnels. And we have the ability, particularly if you're manifesting, generating human design. So, those of you who follow human design will know what I talk about. And those that don't, Google it, please. Do your own research. Don't need to be spoon fed all the time.
Mm.
So, we have the ability to manifest our future and our reality around us. How does that fit in with the shamanic teachings? Is this part of the shamanic way as well? The understanding of creating your own reality and
Yeah.
yeah,
For sure. Yeah. So, I mean, human mass is a real thing. If enough people could be focused on evolutionary principles, then they would create this huge capacity to stop feeding the forces that consume us, and things would have to shift based on that power dynamic. And so, but it starts with the individual. And so our ability to reclaim, our luminosity from our past and then focus, if you can create it for shamans, like Don Juan would show Carlos, he would make him observe a leaf falling from a tree branch, and then he would make him watch the same thing happen again because he could hit the rewind button. He became independent of the time, the linear. He became non-linear, right? So that's shamans are masters at creating their own reality tunnels. And in doing so, they give permission for others to do the same. It's like the 100th monkey thing.
Yeah,
So it's one thing to be of service and to be helping people, but there comes a point where the greatest service that you can offer is to create your own reality tunnel. Because then, it's just energetic. It's like this permission is given for others to do the same. And so perception is everything. And it happens in stages where we're less interfered with as we start to save our energy and we start to get greater and greater clarity. So there's four enemies of man: fear, clarity, power, and old age. Most people never move beyond the first enemy. They remain in fear until they finally are released at death, and then the fear is gone. And we get to look forward to that release. It's going to be beautiful. It's like a second birth, but there's an alternative way of dying. You can die consciously rather than unconsciously. And that allows for a totally different experience with, what we call the afterlife, or, the non-physical world where you become inorganic. Um, and so, yeah, the journey, there is so much purpose and meaning as to why we're here. There's so much opportunity to unbind from the social control matrix and move into the actual Earth Mother's matrix. And she will heal you. She'll take your pain, she'll cleanse you and help you purify. If you can sit with her long enough, she'll do all these incredible things for you. But we're usually too armored to receive that kind of love because we got hurt in a relationship, we armored up, or our parents did something that made us armor. We felt abandoned. We felt, not seen. And so it's really uncomfortable to truly de-armor in the shamanic side of things because it opens you up to so much power. Clarity comes after fear, but that clarity can become a trap. If you don't step into your power, then you'll become like a clown of clarity, like a philosopher that's constantly using the intellect. But when you move into power, you become a lucid dreamer. You're able to live in states of heightened awareness. You're able to see energy directly as it flows, right? And that's the whole point. What Carlos Castaneda revealed in his books is that once you can see energy, it's the most beautiful thing in the world, and you become a seer, and you're no longer interested in the stories or even the physical illusions, that you no longer can see the world the way you once saw it once you break past the threshold of perception. And so that's truly like what Jason Bashir's is talking about is great, but he's avoiding the shamanic part, right? So he's terrified of moving his perception. If he's drinking too many beers, all of a sudden he's like, what's wrong? Something's wrong, because his perception starts to move to this other place and he's not comfortable with that.
yes,
Right? So his teachings are super powerful, but he's missing the key that would put it all together. And so he's staying in the realm of the intellect. And therefore he perceives this place as a technological creation. When in reality, it's a dream world. And all technology is just magic. And so coming out of this idea that technology is negative, or that I don't think we're wearing VR headsets, it's just an idea to try to understand the way simulations function. So, his knowledge is so helpful. Like the Immortal Within book is super powerful. He's really spent a lot of time processing things on a deep level that I really benefit from. And I hope for him, that he would eventually take it into this more energetic side of things, because then he could put it all together.
yeah. No, I fully agree. I mean, um, Jason for me was a big stepping stone in understanding this realm.
Yeah, me too.
Um, and I've got nothing but gratitude for the free, and he's done a lot of free work, And I don't think I missed a single podcast up until I probably started my own YouTube channel, and then got too busy,
Yeah.
and it's dropped away. And to be fair, I probably haven't watched Jason in 5 or 6 months now. Not
Yeah,
because I don't like him, not because I don't rate him. I often talk about him in my channel because
me
for
too.
me, it's a source of reference that people can go to expand of a library of work, which is, I don't think there's anybody else that's done a library of work like that on YouTube.
It's like he's obsessed.
Yeah,
It's crazy. Yeah, he's put in so much work and it's all the math and all the stuff. It's really intense to come to terms with what he's discovered, like with 138 and the calendars and all the ways in which it's connected. I think he's probably, made some errors in his uh, fixation on how it operates, but he admits to that. So I really appreciate that he's willing to put out these ideas on what's going on and also reevaluate ways in which he used to think it was. So I've spent a lot of time with Jason. I spoke at multiple conferences that he puts on, and so we've lived together in Airbnbs and hung out, and he's a really good person. He really cares, but he's also a wounded man with his own unresolved stuff with women and, like all of us. So people expect people to be perfect when they
yeah,
become leaders of powerful ideas. And it's just unfortunate because, it's not fair to him and it's not fair to the person that's projecting that expectation. So, yeah, it's a really powerful body of knowledge.
yeah, yeah. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where people put people on pedestals or people ex we have something called contracts in our minds,
Yeah.
and whether we're aware of it or not, and this is something that I learned a few years ago. In relationships, we won't communicate within the relationship what we want. We'll put a contract in our mind of an expectation of an action or a reaction to something
Yeah,
I'm going to do.
exactly.
And what happens is I then set myself up for a fall because I didn't express the
Hmm.
expectation of my contract in my mind. That
Hmm.
person then does something that upsets me. I get upset. I then go, wow, 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 wow. And all it was my own mind creating the
Yeah.
problem in the first place. Okay.
Totally.
And what we see with, I mean, like when I first started watching you, I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Didn't put you on the pedestal, but what you were saying was so profound
Hmm.
that here was somebody putting into words what I was going through, and I
Hmm.
couldn't believe that there was out there somebody who could put something into words like that.
Hmm.
Well, Jason's been able to put something into words that's so profound that we can't comprehend it on the other side of the spectrum almost.
Yeah.
And so what it does, people create this illusion of the 2 hours in one evening that Jason spends talking to you.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's so helpful to understand that dynamic and then to free yourself from that need for people to be anything more than what they are. If you don't have expectations, then you're neutral and you're open and you're learning and but what you said is key. And it's really, really difficult thing to learn to do, but it's communication. I work with couples on how to communicate with each other, and it's so difficult. And I also, spent a lot of time with mentors learning communication with my previous partner, and it was really valuable. I learned so much because I couldn't admit to I couldn't speak the words that I wanted to because I was afraid of how I would be perceived. And when I finally quit letting that get in the way of what I wanted to say, it was like an emotional cathartic release to finally just say what needed to be said. And then she could understand why it had been so difficult and complicated because I was actually denying myself and her the truth because of all these fears that will be judged.
Yeah, yeah. And when we look at, it's quite easy, really. I'm sure most of the audience now watching really do resonate with that, and they put the old contract in their head, falling out with the other half.
Yeah.
Even with the kids, there's an expectation that
Yeah.
your child will do something. They're never going to do it ever.
Yeah.
If you know your child, you know it's not going to happen, you know. But that expectation's there, and it still winds you up, and you still end up biting or whatever.
Exactly.
If you can imagine in a small controlled environment, and our homes are controlled,
Yeah.
our relationships are fundamentally a small bubble of control between
Hmm.
us and one other person or a couple of people, no more. And it's that difficult for us.
Hmm.
And then you take the collective consciousness or the collective psychosis of the collective consciousness that puts this veil over everything.
Yeah.
That is fundamentally what we're fighting at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, we're all dealing with veils. We're all under hypnosis in just different areas. Everyone has different types. And so it's great to come out of hypnosis in one area, but then, that's actually when you start to realize how hypnotized you are, because you can finally see what's going on. So it is really, really incredible opportunity just to carefully break out of the patterns that are keeping us predictable, heavy, routine, uh, lacking magic. This is a magical realm. We are magical creatures. And it is through the process of becoming hypnotized and then coming out of hypnosis that we evolve. And going back to what you were saying, Toltecs say that women having a womb, their perception of the world is what determines our evolution. So if we could help women to become conscious of their power, then we can ward and protect and contain their power so that they can intend and manifest a truly beautiful realm experience. But women are, interfered with differently than men are. And so we can't expect to be able to understand them to the degree that, like it's a real invitation into like, so this is where relationships become evolutionary. And shamans typically avoid sexual relationships because it's so difficult. They don't have time for it. But they're also missing out on a whole piece of what evolution is. And so shamanism can become escapism. But hopefully that shaman gets to know him or herself enough that he or she's willing to then do that next step, which is to attempt to coexist in a pure way within the realm of being truly honest with each other. And that's where a lot of healing happens, but it is not an easy task.
No, no. In fact, I mean, for me personally, I avoid conflict.
Yeah.
I hate conflict. Really,
Yeah.
I'll do anything to avoid conflict.
Yeah.
And the fact that I would do anything to avoid conflict has created more conflict in my
Yeah.
life
I know.
and caused me more problems than just dealing with it in the first place, you know?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I'm getting better at it. But
Yeah.
but if I know um, something's coming up and I have to overthink it, the old mind,
Yeah.
um, I struggle and I do not enjoy that process at all.
Yeah.
And so there's so many things in the personal that we battle with, not daily, but we
Yeah.
battle with at certain key points in time, which I think are the tests and the stresses that are needed to then allow us to take the next step. Because when life's easy, we don't learn nothing.
Yeah.
I know that was really bad grammatic English there, but when life's easy, we learn very little. When we have a bump in the road,
Hmm.
it's how we deal with the bump that allows us to either smooth that bump out as much as possible or for it to turn into a mountain.
Mm. Exactly. Yeah. My teacher just said, yeah, respond rather than react. You can catch yourself about to go into a pattern that's going to be destructive and make it into a much bigger deal than it is. Right. So this place is incredible in how it teaches us that. And so Toltecs say it's easy to be impeccable in a situation that's difficult, but it's really challenging to become impeccable in a situation that is not difficult. So we actually need somehow to create a life in which we're getting sharp. So we want to put ourselves in situations that are not comfortable or easy. And you can do that today. You can go fucking get a job in construction and get yelled at and have people throw things at you. And, it's fun once you're no longer offended. But
Yeah,
it literally can destroy your ego, right? So you don't want to lose your ego entirely. Like you want to keep things in balance and be able to stand up for yourself and defend yourself and talk shit. And it's a tricky place. So I'm like you, I've avoided conflict and it's been a really, really challenging thing. That's why I went into construction was a means to deal with the reality of those projections. Um, the Toltecs call it reaching the place of no pity, where if things get difficult enough, you reach this moment where you're willing to do what needs to be done, and this shift of perception occurs, and you therefore have discovered an aspect of your being that you wouldn't have had that challenge not got to that point. So Don Juan was constantly setting up Carlos Castaneda in putting him in situations where he would be forced to reach this advantageous state of perception so that he could understand the secret of perception. So the Toltecs say that there's four attributes to develop: patience, cunning, sweetness, and ruthlessness. And those four create a well-rounded being. But if you don't have one of those ingredients, it's not going to work out as far as being able to evolve completely. So it's confronting and in a lot of ways to be honest about where we're at within those developments. But ruthlessness is not cruelty. It's just being able to do what is needed in the moment without hesitation, without fear. And it's a very powerful thing that you'll see like somebody gets in a car accident and you have to lift a car off someone, this incredible energy is available to do so. Um, and so, finding a way to develop our being, uh, not letting somebody else's perception of what that would look like. Again, going back to human design or our individual maps, we are all here to go through different situations as a means to develop these things.
yeah, yeah. Because ultimately, I believe, or think it appears to be that we're a light being or a fractal of source, whichever way you want to put it. I prefer the fractal of source in a realm to have a human experience to grow and develop as that
Mhm.
fractal of source, that there may be something that is discovered that allows the creator of the realm to suddenly go, oh, that's something new. I hadn't
Mhm.
considered that.
Yes.
And so that's why I think we have such extremes and
Yeah.
such mediocreness in our lives at all the same time.
Beautiful. Yeah, the Toltecs say that we are probes of the energetic universe, and we are being given this opportunity to discover things as a means for the creator force to know itself better. So we are an extension of the very thing that we are seeking connection to. We're already connected, right? So you don't need a religion, you don't need a guru or a pope, but you do need the ability to sit with your feelings, to be able to be present and to get grounded enough to handle the reception of that energy. And so we call it return on investment. If you're doing things that are pattern breaks, if you're doing things that are uh, have never been done before, oh my God, the energy that's going to be lent to you is significant. And so that's our opportunity is to become so authentically individual without getting lost from the fact that you're connected to all. And that's a delicate thing also. And so healthy boundaries, getting toxic relationships to be discontinued, even if it's family, it takes a ruthless person to be able to do what is needed and to ensure that you have enough energy to be of service to the whole. And when you truly are, you're going to be lent the energy to continue. And I'm a novice. I'm just in the very beginning stages of attempting to understand what's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always tell the audience, and I know this, I'm a toddler wearing nappies.
Yeah.
And I haven't moved on from that. And in fact, I've got to the stage now where the more I know, the more I realize I don't know,
Yeah.
and the less I know. And it's just like, oh my God, because it's an expansion that never ends, isn't it? Just as you think you're not getting to the end or mastering anything, that's not quite the right word, but just when the journey appears to be you're getting it or you're getting something, the
Hmm.
expansion happens again. And
Yeah.
then so it's a wider road. So you're walking along that road, and as soon as you've grown to fill
Hmm.
the road
Hmm.
never change. Then the road will expand again, and you're the one that's always got to be growing and expanding to maintain that momentum forwards.
Hmm. Yeah, we are very strange creatures, and silence is infinite. So, if you can stay silent for like a whole 10 seconds without any thoughts, then this world that seems so um, fixed becomes unfixed, right? And then imagine going beyond 10 seconds, going to 20 seconds of silence. People think silence is like meditating and sort of being quiet. I'm talking total silence. If
Blackness.
you can sit in
Yeah,
silence, everything goes away, the world stops. You get to see energy in a direct, the way the creator would be. It's just direct communication. But then we come out of that and we're back in our life and we're like, what was that? People write books like I met God, and they think that they're like special because they had silence. Right. And every time I teach a workshop, I get a gift from this realm in the form of a new type of silence. And so the path never ends. It's infinite in its potential. But there is a way to become so close to the designer of this place that you start to laugh on a level that heals you, right? Because it's like Toltecs, their laughter is roaring. They enjoy themselves completely, and they're not dependent on a partner or situations to be, in a certain way. They're just completely alive and feeling their impermanence, which is to have death as an advisor. Our death is an important being to be in communication with, the most important being. Toltecs say that death is the only one that'll be honest with you. Yeah, so we want to be conscious of those deathbed moments, the things that we didn't say to our kids or to our parents or to our partner. It's all caught in our emotional body. And if we can properly get to our pain, so I work with breathwork teachers that help you to go deeper and deeper into the holotropic breath work because that's what cleans the pipes. Our chakras aren't spinning healthfully. There's blockages, and it's a lot of practice in order to clear those blockages. And you wouldn't want to clear them too quickly because then you would be, you would blow out your chakras essentially, right? So you kind of have to accept things as they are and make fun of yourself and your situation and get a little bit lighter and lighter and lighter over time rather than try to do these extreme things to free yourself all at once.
yeah, yeah. I actually see the chakras as a governor of
Hmm.
of the body and the mind.
Hmm.
And as our frequency changes, they will start to fall away almost.
Hmm.
And as they fall away, true enlightenment or the ability to see things that we can't perceive yet will
Yeah.
come in.
Yeah.
And the clairvoyance, all the clairs start to come in and all that sort of stuff. Um, but we're not ready for it yet because we're in such a toxic realm at the moment that that for us to do so would cause us harm and would
Mhm.
end up harming others. I think so anyway. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the Toltecs call them energy gates. And once you cross the gate, then the gate's no longer needed. So the first gate of dreaming is to become conscious that you're dreaming. The second gate is to be able to then have some control over those experiences within that dream. The third gate is being able to go to sleep in the dream, wake up in another dream, go to sleep again and wake up in the third dream and be conscious, right? And that world is actually more real than the one you and I are in right now. So once you cross into the third gate, you're in really intense territory, right? So now the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh gates are available to start to pursue. But you wouldn't want to go try to cross those gates until you're ready because you would be destroyed. Knowledge is a dangerous thing, and we want to become powerful enough to approach it in a way that is respectful. Um, I've seen a lot of people develop delusions of grandeur and start to become very, very toxic, to seekers because they start to project uh, ideas, onto the world that's based on their own unresolved shadow wounding that didn't get dealt with. So, power is a dangerous affair. In fact, a lot of the people that I am aware of that are teaching the same things that I am to a degree are actual monsters. They think they're the only ones that can talk about these things. And so I've been blacklisted, I'm the bad guy because I'm challenging those concepts that they're projecting onto everyone. And so then they call that, counter intent, and that I'm a black magician trying to slow things down, and that I'm, a negative energetic frequency to what they're doing. But I'm just serving as a mirror and giving them an opportunity to correct what's going on because it's incorrect. It's so incorrect that it's a really disturbing thing to come to terms with is meeting a sorcerer who has gone mad and thinks that they have the solution, and can't have anyone in their life that would reflect to them anything else. So every step of this path is the opportunity to get totally tripped up.
Yeah, yeah. And that comes with that overlay, doesn't it? Because as soon as somebody starts, as you said earlier, as soon as somebody starts to really get it,
Yeah.
it will slip something in. It'll start to twiggle the old ego a bit, or the inner child will be, or the what is it? Something monkey. I can't remember now. But yeah, there's a paradox. But yeah, it's because the system and this realm is designed for us to fail ultimately, because out of failure comes despair, and despair can be fed on.
Yeah, so that's why we want to learn how to fail and realize it's okay.
Yeah,
It's not, in fact, that's how you become free is just as long as you know that you were doing everything in your power from a place of heart. But if it's from a place of the mind, then you're not doing everything in your power. The real truth of things, and it's okay to make those mistakes, but hopefully you don't hurt others in the process because then that karma cycle, it's really difficult to navigate all this stuff. So clearing your debt is key, not credit cards, but like your debt to humanity, your parents, the people that taught you, the people that, some of my most powerful teachers were shadow teachers. They showed me how not to do things. I'm in debt to them for showing me that. I appreciate that. And I have compassion for how lost they became. Um, and therefore I'm able to, just be honest with my wounding because I'm triggered by other people's wounding. So this person or these people that are saying that I'm counter intent or I'm a black magician is they have their own unresolved shadow wounding, and then in order to feel safe, they have to project that onto others. But in reality, anything you're saying about others has everything to do with you.
yeah,
Otherwise, it wouldn't be spoken in that way. It would be, instead of judgment, it would be an assessment. And there are clear conduits in this place, but they're kind of scary. because they're actually balanced beings. And we're always looking for the extremes, and we really struggle with the simple.
Yeah. What one of the big things I observe, and I've done it myself, and I'm sure, is we project onto
Yeah.
others. You know, it's that mental construct of the contract, but also it's the projection of our own insecurities that we will
Mhm.
project onto others at times, and being aware that you're doing it can be
Yeah.
very, very tricky.
Totally. Yeah. It's this is a projection we're experiencing. So going backwards through the stream of consciousness to that which is projecting this experience, we can't do that we can't go backwards through that stream of consciousness until we are no longer projecting ourselves. So it's all like the microcosm and the macro. And so expectations, projections, um, molds, it's going to take real creative process to stop doing that even with ourselves. So like if you can stop judging yourself, then you stop judging others and vice versa.
Yeah,
And then you can actually have a truly honest evaluation of what's going on with your feelings. And then you end up learning how to clear your field. So my field carries things from the past. But as the more I do these shamanic movements, the more I recapitulate, the more I sit with my mentors, the more I sit with the mother, the more I learn to sun gaze, the more purification occurs. And there's all kinds of ways to purify. But the breath, is super simple. We can always get our breath work more and more dialed in.
yeah, yeah. And for those who are wondering what Giles talked about with recapitulation, we covered that on our first chat. So go back to that one. Joel explains it and even gives us the moves and the full business on that one. So please do go back if you're wondering what Joel's talking about. That recapitulation. It's fascinating and it's well covered on our first chat. Um, Something that I'm aware of in this realm, because it's not fixed, it's fluid.
Yeah.
We live in a fluid realm. Is the Mandela effect.
Hmm.
Now, what is the shamanic view, or how would you perceive? Oh, this is good, isn't it? I'm terrible. How would you perceive the Mandela effect, and what to you does it mean when we're getting or observing Mandela effects?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a way of marking timelines. And I think shamans, don't need the validation of the Mandela effect in order to understand that there's multiple timelines. They understand it on a deeper level. A real shaman, and I don't claim to be a shaman. I'm a student of shamans until I'm able to do what the Toltecs talk about in the Castaneda books. I just perceive myself as a student, but yeah, we are in a nonlinear experience, which is rigid, right? So the rigidity of this simulation is very difficult to come to terms with. There's only so much you can do within the rigidity of the contract that you're in, but you become impeccable within that contract, so you make the most of the contract that you have. Mandela effects give us insight into the fact that there's so much more going on than meets the eye, that this realm is intelligent, and that there are intelligent beings that are attempting to communicate with us as a means for us to become capable of visiting them in these other layers. So this is their way of letting us know, but it's like an initiation. Most people aren't going to believe the Mandela effect is possible because it would shatter their worldview. And so I know some really powerful truthers that refuse to look at it. It's such a confronting thing that they just don't want to believe it. It's a really powerful opportunity, though, to become sensitive enough to the fact that this is not a physical fixed situation. I've had very strange things happen to me that prove that, where like a backpack that had a strap that goes into another thing in order to lock it down, it had been turned and sewn opposite years after I owned it. So this place, these beings will do little strange things, even just on a personal level, to make you realize that there's more going on than meets the eye.
Yeah, yeah. I I see it as a very, very firm demonstration in a non-invasive way to
Yeah,
prove that we're in a fluid um, realm. And it also, for me, proves or confirms in my mind that time is not linear
yeah,
because and it's actually it's a waveform or toroidal field of and it just depends where you got something spinning this way, you got something spinning that way, and somewhere in the middle of all this spinning, we're
mm,
kind of floating around in there somewhere.
mhm,
And depending on potentially the collective consciousness or our own, we have the ability to go up or down within a
mm,
wave limitation of where we are. I think that shamanic or Toltec work allows you to break the limited wave of my perception
mm,
and expand the bandwidth.
for sure. Yeah, there's entire other like that you can have a shift of the assemblage point, which is still like this world is intact, but your sh perception is unique and pristine. But then there's a movement of the assemblage point where you access other bands of energetic skimming. So we've yet to even scratch the surface, and we want to prepare ourselves so to do so. And so Toltecs say there's no need to follow the ups and downs of our fellow man. So you learn stillness, and then through stillness you become so calm that you can generate a ton of energy all at once, like in martial arts, or like a person on a track, when the gun goes off, they can whoever gets off first, right? So it's that knowing when the gun's gonna go. You have to be a little bit ahead of it. You have to be so in your intuition that you can truly be empty enough to fill. And so yeah, these waves, being able to ride the waves, being able to relax, so completely relax that you can unbind from the limitation of what that wave is possible of delivering you to. And it's very ecstatic. It's very we're meant to be in an ecstatic state of intensity. And this place is designed to hijack us so that we don't. And it's not the realm itself that's designed that way. It's the simulation within the dream is meant to make sure that we are, continue to be an accessible food source. And when you stop being a food source to these beings, then you can start to do these things that you wouldn't have been able to do because you have all of your energy intact rather than it constantly being recycled through these predator energies. And these predator energies aren't negative. They're just serving the purpose of our evolution. They're actually pointing out to us where we're not complete, and we need to be a complete being in order to become, um, connected directly to source again.
Yeah, yeah. Something you just said, it just I just got a little click. It's like the perception of good and bad, or light and dark, or evil, or whatever way we want to look at it. Fundamentally, the energy just is, isn't it?
Mm.
It's just energy.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Don Juan it was really hard for Carlos to understand that. He's just like, if you can come out of good and evil, if you can come out of these stories of right and wrong, yeah, then you're finally gonna stop being like caught in the religion of things. Like religion is a major, major hijack. It's the most difficult thing for Toltecs to navigate with their apprentices. Even if they were raised in an atheist home or something, the religion is still like it's like this overlay. And it's really, really hard to come out of the good and evil storyline. But at the same time, you do want to be able to look at vampirism, cannibalism, and all the things that are occurring that would be called evil, and be able to stomach the intensity of those types of ways of being. Um, but it's just power. And this is a realm of power. And there's two different kinds. There's the kind of power that you gain in this life, and then there's the type of power you gain in the afterlife. The Toltecs are seeking power in the afterlife. They're not wanting to do things that would bind them to this place. But if you get into the behaviors of some of the elite and the rituals that they do, that binds them here. It's so they're trying to prolong their lives. They're trying to hijack energy from the youth so that they can stay here because they know what's coming if once they face their crossing. And I feel for all these beings that, got seduced by power in that way. But I also have very little compassion on some level because if it's there was a choice made, and we have an aspect of free will. And serving as a mirror in this place, it's neutral. I'm not judging, but for them to see that mirror, it's too difficult. So they're very threatened by observers.
Yeah, yeah. No, I haven't expressed this to my viewership before, but I actually do feel sorry is the wrong word, but I can comprehend that those born into the wrong kind of family
Yeah,
are more trapped than we are. So
for
we are
sure.
actually freer than, say, a Rothschild.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And the fate of the Rothschild is preordained because of what their fathers did.
Mhm.
Because they have fundamentally, as far as I'm concerned, bent the knee to the control mechanism that overlays this realm. And so they are trapped. They've got no chance of getting out of here, which is why they do what they do inside this realm, which is
Yep.
what you just said that makes so much sense, is they want to live longer and they want to be this realm, control the realm, and ensure that they get everything from this realm that they can. And they also work not in decades, but hundreds of years in front, if they
Mhm.
can, to ensure that their children will have their future bearers will have the same control mechanism in life because they haven't got anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so yeah, it's really well said, and it's just the reality of it. So we do need tyrants in this place. The tyrant is just as important as so it's set up appropriately for us to evolve within, and and it's just the way this place operates. So yeah, when you're able to see it from a neutral perspective, you understand why it is this way. You understand where they're coming from, what they're operating out of. This is why extreme wealth can be very destructive, is because once you when there's no limitation to what you can do, then you start seeking things to do that are taboo, right? Because you're looking for a new experience. You've already experienced all these things. Like it's a really tricky, unfortunate aspect of accumulation and hoarding wealth. Money's currency, it's meant to move, it's meant to have be in a current. And then so these people that are hoarding it for their future, you know, generations, it's actually it's a disservice to their children and their grandkids because then they're not going to be able to have a proper experience. I appreciate that my dad had money but didn't just give it to me, and still hasn't, and that's great. And he knew that. He's like, I could give you some money and make it easier, but then you won't be able to understand the struggle, which is necessary. You take struggle out of the equation, you're going to find some other type of struggle, with your psyche, right? So these people have been hijacked by non-human forces, and they even do rituals in order to invite these beings in, and they shapeshift into these different strange beings. And so this world is run by sorcery.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's all they can experience after so
Yeah.
long. And the ability we have and the freedom we have is not that we necessarily have lots of free will, but we can choose two different paths. We can go down the shapeshifting, all shiny, shiny, all that glitters and all that sort of stuff, or we can kind of make our own road
Yeah.
and experience the experience that we came here to experience in the first place and grow and develop. And perversely, you realize after a certain time that the shiny, shiny is actually pointless and worthless.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. The real treasure is being able to have access to your youth, not trying to take someone else's youth. Right. So a lot of men seek younger women because of the imbalance of their energy, and then they're getting energy from the youth, or even like, yeah, all kinds of very disturbing things occur within that confusion. But this place is designed to offer you the opportunity to sell your soul or not. And man, it's a difficult thing to thrive in a world where everything's getting more and more expensive, and to try to stay pure and organic and not move into a place in which you're outsourcing your power to somebody that can grandfather you into financial abundance or whatever false sense of securities. So it's a very sensitive subject for many people, especially like influencers and truthers, and how can I keep this going and get supported? And so that's why I'm like, I'm happy to go back to construction. If you guys want to help me do this work, I'm down. I appreciate it. I love it. It's not work at all for me. It's like it's a joy. But if I identify in this way and start to try to fixate on the outcome, right, then it's going to get corrupted. Even just a little bit of corruption is enough corruption to ruin something. So, it's such a tricky thing to come to terms with, how important it is to preserve something that most people don't preserve.
Yeah. Because when we're talking about wealth, everybody always thinks about this stuff,
Yeah,
money.
yeah,
And that is not wealth in any way, shape, or form. The wealth is in here, and
yeah,
you are the wealth.
yeah,
And when you understand that and you give yourself to source and allow, for me, allow source to guide you, and you just, it's like, I think it was Mary Poppins,
mhm,
puts the umbrella up and she flies.
yeah,
And the umbrella is source, the wind picks up the umbrella and you just, off you go. And
mhm.
wherever the wind takes you is where you're meant to go.
Yes,
And
beautiful.
and when you give yourself to that,
Yeah.
amazing things start to happen because you also become ungovernable.
Yeah. It's a real thing. This place is a magical realm. So when you tap into the frequency of being fluid, like a warrior becomes fluid. Um, and you don't want to be too open or too closed. It's just this balance of like really taking care of your energetics, but not being like disciplined to the point that in a you're missing out on the expansion piece. So it is an incredible thing to discover. And when we really, like, it's okay to generate a lot of income. I'm not saying, in fact, I want people to realize that there's been in the Hollywood realm this idea that billionaires are bad and the poor people are good. And that puts it into the psyche so that the wealth can continue to stay in just the hands of very few. So people like you and I and others that are really authentically seeking connection to source, it's okay to come into abundance.
Yeah.
It's okay to charge for your time what you're worth. It's okay to work within this neutral money realm. The money's not bad. It's just a tool. And we want to be able to work with the tools in a way that is balanced. And so Carlos Castaneda was given a task by his teacher to walk away from all his home and all of his wealth because he'd made a bunch of money selling these books. And his test was to go find a town that was very poor in the middle of nowhere, beg for a job and a place to sleep, and to climb himself out of poverty. And he was able to do it super easily because he wasn't offended. He's willing to sleep in a place that wasn't ideal. He's willing to cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner all, and just enjoy and laugh himself. It's a really cool story because we need something to balance our being once we start to come into abundance. Because if we're not careful, we'll find ourselves in a comfort zone that would limit us from, what we're here to discover. Again, it's easy to be impeccable in a situation that's difficult, but it's quite difficult to be impeccable in a situation that isn't. And so the fourth enemy of man is old age. And you never defeat that enemy, but you can hold it off for a really, really long time, depending on how youthful you interact. So I'm always willing to dig ditches and pack lumber and, get dirty. I got my truck stuck in the mud yesterday, and I got caught where it got caught where there was like a hill, and so the tires wouldn't spin because my neighbor helped me with these shovels, and we're just sweating for hours and hours and hours in the pouring rain and the mud and just getting dirty and almost to the point of exhaustion. And it was like the best day of my life. Like it felt so good. It was so humbling. It was so grounding. Everyone's walking by us on this road and asking, I met all these incredible people and I'm in a community where everyone supports each other. And it just gave me so much hope in humanity, just from the fact that I made this supposed mistake.
Yeah.
So we want to be very earth-based.
Yeah. But you had a real experience, didn't you?
Yeah.
Wasn't on the television, it wasn't through a computer screen. You
Yeah.
actually had a real experience, which these days is quite a rare thing.
Yeah, yeah, and then in the process, I'm gonna be helping this man with some side projects, and he was so funny. He's like this really powerful man from Serbia who's been through war and was just laughing the whole time and just like, we're gonna get it, man. It's all good. We got this. And he just did this out of the kindness of his heart. He didn't have to help me. He could have let me try to figure it out on my own, but he like really wanted to help. And he had a lot of fun too. And now we're bonded, and now I'm so excited about people because I've been so private for so long, that it was like a sign for me to come out of that privacy.
But don't you find as well, and then we'll go back to the vibration or the frequency level, that you attract the same kind of people as you're giving out your frequency. And so
Yeah.
we repel those of low frequency. I mean,
Yeah.
we can't even have a conversation with a lower frequency person these days. It's like we're speaking a different language. And yet you meet somebody who's kind of on your wavelength or on that level, and that's just like that. Bang.
Yeah. Such a gift.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Now, I'm aware of the time. We've been chatting for quite a while.
Yeah.
So, something that you did mention, and I don't think we can go into it today because it's a big one, is you mentioned karma.
Mhm.
So, if you'd be so kind to join me again in another period of time
For
lapse,
sure.
um, I think it would be really nice to dive into karma because I think the my audience certainly, and I'm very interested in your take on karma, the karmic debt, how
Hmm.
we clear it, and I know it goes into past lives from my own experience.
Hmm.
That would be a fascinating chat with you. Would you be up for that?
Of course. Sounds great.
Superb. So thank you very, very much, Joel. It's been an amazing chat. You're absolute star, and I really look forward to speaking to you again. So, with
Thanks,
that,
David.
everybody, thank you very much, and goodbye.
Much love.